Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, and thanks for coming back to the show. This is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. And I am Mighty Blue, your host. Each week we bring you a guest or two to feed your interest in the Appalachian Trail, mainly, but we're also bringing you people who've hiked other long-distance trails as well. Today, though, we've got Garrett Tandy, also known as Jive Turkey. Garrett completed his AT through hike a few months ago, and many of the emotions you'll recognise from previous guests are all part of Garrett's reintegration back into society. Garrett will share his thoughts in a moment. We've got a few more members of the class of 2022 today as well. Several months ago, a woman contacted me and suggested that I should follow her nephew and his girlfriend on the show for 2022. I hadn't actually decided what I was going to do at the time, so I asked her to get back to me a little nearer the time. Well, guess what? Now, the woman who wrote to me, Kera Smith, is actually going with her nephew and his girlfriend. So we're going to be meeting our first trio of 22 hikers after Garrett. Then, shocking revelations that really took me by surprise as I was reading Winton Border's Passin Thru. But we're going to come to that later. Let's first meet Garrett Tandy. Here's Garrett. So today's guest goes by the really glorious trail name of Jive Turkey, though my guess is that his family refers to him by his given name, Garrett Tandy. Hey, Garrett, how are you?
I'm doing good, Steve. How you doing? I'm
good. Does anybody else call you Jive Turkey apart from hikers?
No, pretty much just hikers. Yeah.
And did you get that on the trail when you went in 2021 this year?
No, I actually got that name from the Bartram Trail I did in 2010. So yeah, I debated getting a new trail name on the AT, but I figured I'd stick with what I had, and it worked out pretty well.
And how'd you get that?
Coming down Waya Bald on the Bartram, my hiking partner on the Bartram, and I came up to a turkey that was coming around a switchback, and I saw it from a ways away, and I thought it would run off into the woods, and it came around the corner at the same time we did, and it kind of got flustered and ran off, and my buddy just said, "Oh, I'm one Jive Turkey, but I'm getting the hell out of here," and it kind of stuck.
Isn't it funny how these things go? I love hearing people's origin stories. I named myself because I was too scared of what they might call me, so that was good.
Right, yeah. Smart man.
Now, as I mentioned, you're a member of the class of 2021, so you're a pretty recent through hiker. You actually completed your flip-flop at the end of October. Yep. But this has been on your mind to do for some time, hasn't it? So how did the AT get on your bucket list in the first place?
Yeah, so I grew up in North Carolina, so I mean, I knew of the Appalachian Trail. I didn't really know the significance of it. And probably in college, around 2003, my uncle actually did the AT at the age of 56. And I think about that time, I kind of thought, oh, that might be cool to do. And it just kind of grew over time.
Did he tell you stories about it? I mean, because you know what it's like with hikers, isn't it? They want to tell everybody their stories and no one wants to listen after a couple of weeks. So was your uncle like that? Did he want to tell his stories?
Yeah, absolutely. And he actually is a Triple Crowner. So I remember seeing Triple Crown pictures of or pictures of the CDT and the PCT especially. But yeah, he definitely wanted to tell stories.
And now you've done it. Is he still around?
He is, yeah.
Right. So now you've done it. Have you had the opportunity to talk to him about it much?
A little bit. He followed along via text and social media. I haven't had a chance to connect with him yet and talk to him face to face, but I'm sure that'll happen.
Because you two will be the only people who know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
It is kind of amazing how that kind of goes. But you've been working in the fitness industry for most of your work life, haven't you? So tell us about that. What have you actually been doing?
So since 2009, I've worked at private country clubs, working with kind of people in post-retirement, most of all. And
old fat white guys like me.
Not all of them. They're pretty fit. But no, just helping them with specifically golf as well as movement. Just moving better, trying to keep people out of physical therapy and out of the orthopedic surgeon's office, and helping people when they come out of, post-injury, post-surgery. So just
I'm I'm a really keen golfer, but not a good golfer. So if there's one, is it a posture trick you give people? What is it? Because that turn on your hips is quite painful sometimes against your back. So tell us how do you advise people on that?
Well, there's not one specific solution for each person. It's kind of like picking out your hiking gear. Everybody's a little different.
Yes.
So your back pain or your hip pain or your whatever could be different than your golfing buddies. So you kind of assess people from an individual standpoint and then help them with mobility, stability, sometimes strength. There's maybe even sometimes some explosive power exercises, just depending on what they need. So.
I don't need much explosive power. I can hit the ball 300 yards, and I have hit the ball well over 300 yards a couple of times.
That's incredible.
Rarely on the fairway, and often going away fast.
Yep.
And crashing into people's houses. Nightmare. I don't know how that comes about.
Exactly.
So you've done this fitness thing, and I guess it's a pretty cool career. You've been involved in country clubs and stuff like that. So doing all of that, how on earth are you able to actually interrupt your life in your are you mid-30s?
38.
Mid to late 30s?
Yeah.
38, okay. And that's kind of an unusual demographic on the trail, I think you'd agree, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this year, maybe not so much, but historically, definitely so.
Yeah. And so how were you able to, in that situation, because as you say, lot of them, the reason a lot of them aren't out there is because they're consolidating their careers. So that wasn't what you wanted to do. So tell us how you made that happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I really don't have a lot of responsibilities. I don't have kids. I don't have a significant other. And my job was seasonal. So most private country clubs in Florida, kind of have a down period, and that's the summertime. So that works out perfect for hiking. And so my plan was, leave a little early from my job, and then come back a little late. I also had a home. I sold that home. And so that gave me a little more flexibility as well, when it came down to it.
It's amazing how many people deliberately make themselves homeless.
Right. Yeah. It's very freeing. And, if you can do it responsibly, I would encourage it.
So what did you do to do it responsibly? Because, there is a time when the hiking is over, and you get back and you're living somewhere. I mean, you're in a nice looking place now. So where are you now?
Yeah, I lucked out and I'm renting from a friend who's giving me a really good deal on a bedroom in her house. And so I just got fortunate in that regard because rent's not cheap right now.
No,
and,
that's right.
And I was also able to, sell my house at a good time. So I lucked out. Anybody who's thinking about hiking, I would suggest making sure you have some good padding when you come back, because it might take a month or 2 or 3 to get things kind of back in line. If you kind of sell your house and just live homeless, make sure you have a cushion when you come back.
I was living in Airbnbs before I went
wow.
on my hike in 2019 because I'd come back from Spain, having done the Camino. And I had about 2 months to wait before I was going on my hike in the AT in 2019. So I just stayed in Airbnbs for a while. And it is a homeless feeling as well. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah. So do you feel pretty good about it? Is it freeing for you now?
Yeah. I'm pretty comfortable. It was definitely nice, just walking with everything that you need on your back for 6 months, and then coming back to society is a little bit different. And it's taken a little bit of adjustment. I'd say I still have some of the post-trail depression that most people suffer from, but I'm working through it. It's not a doom and gloom kind of depression. It's just kind of like a finding your place in society again kind of thing.
Yeah, you do feel, somebody said this the other day, they feel like the wrong piece of a jigsaw or something like that, to find it difficult to fit back in society. And it is quite strange how, you do become, you become at one with the woods, and that isn't at one with anything else, is it really?
Right.
So that's kind of difficult to come back. So, but anyway, you were in this country club business, and you get your winters off, your summers off, and so on. And the time was right, you think, with COVID and so on to sell. Were you reevaluating your life anyway? Was it because you weren't sure about staying in that business, or you just thought, this is something I wanted to do for years, this is the time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a transitional time in my life period, with COVID. I think, like a lot of people, you spend a lot of time reflecting on, what have I wanted in the past? What do I want going forward in the future? Sure. And the career I've had so far has been great, and I still love that thing, but I was like, well, there's a lot of things I could do with my time over the next 30 or 40 years.
Sure,
And, also, I'd always wanted to do the AT and I kept putting it off. So, there's no time like the present. And, it was more of a decision based on that. Like, hey, I could put this off for another 20 years and never do it. So I might as well go ahead and do it now and put the rest of life on hold and figure that out later.
Because life will still be there.
Yeah.
I noticed this so much differently in 2019 to 2014. So many people have put their lives on hold and were happy to do so. They had the confidence of youth, I guess. A lot of them were younger people. Older people, they're retired and they've sorted out whatever they needed to sort out. But younger people were quite relaxed about giving up their jobs. In my youth, we couldn't do that really. We'd all got married way too young, and it was more difficult for us to be able to do that. So I love the fact that youngsters feel confident enough to be able to do that. I still count you as a youngster, by the way, because you're 30
Thanks,
years.
I appreciate that.
You're 30 years younger than me, so that's all good.
Yeah,
now,
I appreciate it.
so you gave yourself a slightly longer summer than the business allowed you, but you actually started in late April, which is quite late. Were you always intending to flip-flop, or were you trying to get to Katahdin before, they say it closes, but it doesn't actually, but before the middle of October?
Yeah, so my goal was a northbound hike, and in all honesty, I thought that was the only way to legitimately do the AT.
Damn right.
But
you've heard me mention this once or twice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my mindset. I thought, through hike, no days off, or not no days off, but no skipping miles, nothing like that, all the way. And so I thought I could do it in the amount of time. I left April 25th, and that gave me like 5.5 months. And the mileage, when you calculate it before you hike, I mean, it was like, oh, that's definitely doable.
Yes.
and once you get into it, it's a little bit different story. But I ended up flip-flopping, and I don't regret that either. I learned one thing I did learn on the AT is there's 1,000 different ways to hike it, and they're all great. So whatever works for you.
Funnily enough, you mentioned that about the miles. I'd forgotten I did this, but just I want to share with you. I don't know whether you thought of this. When you work out at the beginning, you always know, because you've read the books about it, that in New Hampshire and Maine, you're going to slow down anyway, don't you? So I kind of didn't count the first 300 or 400 miles. I mean, they were what they were. I then worked out roughly when I wanted to finish and how many miles I then had to do, and then divided those up. And I would give myself a credit of if my average I needed to do was 13 miles a day or 10 miles, say 12 miles a day. And if I did 14 miles, I'd have a bonus of 2 miles. It's plus 2. If I did 10, I was minus 2, and I kept running total. And once I got to a full day off, I'd take it off.
Yeah.
Because that seemed to work quite nicely. And I think you're right. You make these adjustments on the fly, don't you?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to do it. I kind of tried doing some of that when I got behind. I was like, okay, I got to get caught up. And, so for every, 3 days of 20 miles, I get to take a day off or whatever it was.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's a great way to do it. I just didn't adhere to my to my structure there.
No one ever adheres to their plan, and that's one of the skills of being on the trail. You become a problem solver, and you work out what's best for you. And so I'm glad you did that.
Yeah.
And with the job you've been doing on the physical side of things, the physical education side of things, I guess the physical side of hiking itself wasn't too much of an issue for you, was it?
I mean, it's hard for everybody. I'm not the fittest guy in the world. I've been active most of my life, but I'm not a super great athlete. I'd say the one thing I am strong at is hiking all day long. I might not hike fast, but I have a lot of endurance. And one good thing about my job is I was on my feet all the time. So I was used to that. Whereas
You're definitely doing that when you're in hiking. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of the people I ran into went from desk jobs or just being more lethargic during COVID lockdowns and things. And so they went from couch to, climbing Katahdin, so to speak. And I think
that was me.
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does make it a little bit harder, So,
yes, I'm sure.
So it does give you a little bit of an advantage.
Did it surprise you, though? Did the physicality of it over that 5 or 6 month period, did it surprise you how physical it was?
Not at the beginning. When I hit southern Maine and New Hampshire, I was more surprised at how physical that would be. I knew it slowed you down. I knew it was harder, but that was a lot harder than I had anticipated.
Sure.
But more so the thing that surprised me most was more on the mental side of things. I mean, just how long 6 months of hiking is. You know, the first 3 months are great. And then like the last 3 months, it was like, I mean, I really felt like I was out there for 2 years. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but if you asked me what year it was, I would have been like, well, it's probably 2024, you know?
Yeah, because you just get absorbed into it, isn't it? That is your life, isn't it? It's literally that thing of getting up every day, packing up every day. You just wish your pack was going to be a little bit lighter. You're glad that the tent, it hasn't rained in the night, so your tent's dry. All those little things become important.
Yeah.
And that becomes what your life is. And I love that part of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And it, you know, kind of piggybacking off of that, you know, every morning I woke up and was like thankful my food was still there, you know, because, you know, things can get in your food, and it, you know, it made you realize how simple, you know, how grateful, like I was just very grateful that I would get to camp every night. And then the next morning I would have my food there. You know, that was, you know,
yes, it's a wonderful thing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we spoke before, you reflected that you actually feel physically worse now. What have you been doing to get back into normal sort of everyday life shape? Because it isn't easy to do, is it? You know, you've got the hiker hobble and that. And so what have you been doing?
Yeah, so my body felt pretty good on trail. I had a couple little aches and pains, but, you know, the first month to 6 weeks, I mean, I was hurting bad. I mean, I had a lot more aches and pains. You know, anytime I'd sit down, I'd stand up and have the hiker hobble for a while. So yeah, I've just been working a lot on restoring my mobility, because things tend to tighten up on trail because of overuse,
Sure.
you know, repetitive use, but it is overuse too. So a lot of mobility, stability, balance, you know, and a little bit of strength work here and there, you know. So I still have some aches and pains from the trail, but they're getting better and better every day.
So do I. I finished 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's not encouraging.
Yeah, but I'm twice your age, remember?
Okay, all right, yeah.
So how were those early miles? Was it what you'd hoped it would be? Because sometimes people turn up a Springer, they imagine one thing, but they experience something completely different. How was the day-to-day routine for you?
Yeah, the routine was, I enjoyed the routine, you know, setting up camp, breaking down camp. I thought that was great right from the start. And I enjoyed the hike great from the start, or I enjoyed it a lot from the start. One of the things I was worried about, I didn't mind being alone, but I'm a social person. And so I didn't know how many people I'd meet starting so late.
Sure.
And luckily there was kind of like, I think they called it the second bubble this year. And there was just a more extended bubble of people.
Was that probably because of COVID? It was still hanging around?
Yeah, I agree. I think people decided to do it later. And then also the ATC decided not to recognize hikes until like May. So I think that extended the time period.
So are you saying yours doesn't count?
I'm not sure. It counts for me, so I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, of course it counts for you. It counts for most people. I mean, someone needs to get over that. You know,
Yeah.
I know. I've been told off by the ATC before for saying this, but really, come on, you hiked it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I hope they recognize it. You know, kind of post. You know, I hope they reflect and will recognize it for those that started before then.
But all do, don't they?
Yes, yeah, they do.
You can get a certificate from Alder. Actually, you know what? I never got my certificate from Alder. I must do that, actually.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet
the
either.
other two. Yeah, you should do. You know, I know not everyone needs a certificate, but it is a lovely thing to look at every now and then to say, yeah, I did that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice. I'd probably put it in a box somewhere, but it would be nice to pull it out.
That's
every
okay.
now and then.
That's okay, and you should do. Just remind yourself how crazy you were when you were a kid.
That's right.
When you were 38. Yeah,
Exactly.
And as you started fairly late, were the miles themselves quite lonely for you? Because you said it didn't bother you being alone.
Yeah.
And I know you said people were starting at the same time, but there can't have been that many people around, were there?
There were a ton of people. I think I started April 25th. I think that day there was close to 50 people that started. I think on the website there was only 30 people registered that day, but there had been a storm the night before, and so it backed up. People decided to stay in a hostel or at Amicalola an extra day. And so, yeah, at Stover's Creek shelter, I think there was at least 30 people there that first night. So,
did you stay in the shelters or did you stay in your tent?
I stayed in the 501 shelter. That was my first shelter, which that doesn't count.
Wow.
And
that's
then,
a long way down.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania.
Wow, that was your first shelter?
Yeah. And then,
oh my gosh.
yeah. And then when I flipped the first night in the 100-mile wilderness, I stayed in a shelter. And I stayed in more shelters in the Northeast. But yeah, I kind of liked my tent. When it was cold, I felt like it would be warmer in the tent. And, it was just more private and,
you did. Yeah. I suppose starting then, you probably didn't experience any snow.
No, close though. The day I walked down into Fontana Dam, it snowed in the Smokies that day.
Or smoked in the snows.
Yeah, smoked in the Smokies.
Right, so you're lucky because I tell you, I hiked in both times in snow in the Smokies. Oh my gosh, it was tough. It really was. I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though you say you're quite happy being by yourself, you did actually gather up a trail family, didn't you?
Right, yeah.
Was that because of the loneliness or just something happened and you liked people and they liked you and you just carried on hiking together?
Yeah. I mean, I like being around people, but I was okay hiking by myself. But yeah, I kind of connected with a trail family in Damascus. I met a married couple there researching radar, and we started hiking, and then we collected another person, AKA. So those four of us, those two AKAs on trail this year. But,
all right.
But yeah, the four of us hiked probably 800 or 900 miles together.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. I tell you, hiking with your spouse, I would think would be a tough thing to do. But so many people seem to do it, and good for them. If you can survive a through hike, you've done pretty damn well. Your marriage is pretty strong, I suspect.
Absolutely, especially if you're sharing a tent. I don't know how people do that.
No, nor do I, not at all. Yeah. And you mentioned that when we spoke before, that your family was kind of platinum blazing. What did that look like for you guys? Were you staying in hotels a lot? I mean, what were you doing?
Yeah, we hit a lot of hostels and we stayed in some hotels. And I counted up my statistics the other day. And of the 189 days I was on trail, I'm embarrassed to admit I slept in a bed 93 days. So I had no idea it was that much until I counted it. I would have guessed maybe 50, but
it does not make you a bad person.
No. So no, it's hard to turn down a shower, a breakfast, and a nice bed. And there's so many hostels and such a network of people on the AT now that help you either get to a town or whatever. That it's convenient, and it's one way to do the trail. It's an experience. I mean, another way would not to do it as much, and that's cool too. But it was the way it worked out this year.
It's your responsibility to hike the way you want to hike. I mean, it's not anybody else's business how you want to do it. If you want to I know a couple, I'm not going to actually name them because I don't think they've told their family yet, but who are going, actually, I'm going to be interviewing them soon once I've told their family. And they're intending to try to platinum blaze literally the whole way.
Right.
Stay in the bed 180 nights out of 180 nights. That would be pretty impressive, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still a hike. You still got to walk the 2,200 miles. You still got to walk the
miles. Yeah,
that's right.
And I don't blame anybody for doing that. If you can do it, go for it. It supports the small businesses along the way, and they need that. I
agree.
Good for anybody who does that. I mean, I think I know some people working in country clubs that would love to slack pack the entire AT. And it's doable, like they don't want to sleep on the ground because they're in their 70s, and I'm like, go for it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so was it your trail family that persuaded you to flip? And why was that necessary at that stage? Because you can put in some quite good miles, can't you?
Yeah.
Or were you running out of time by then?
We were definitely behind. So coming into Delaware Water Gap, it was around August the 10th. And
all right. Okay.
I kind of was, when August 1st came around, I said I could hike 20 miles a day for the entire month of August, and I can catch up to where I need to be. And because I knew it was easier from Delaware Water Gap to Vermont, it's pretty easy hiking through there. And I was planning on doing that. And my trail family, they were from Pennsylvania, and they had a car in Pennsylvania, and they said, well, we're flipping if you do that, you're going to rush. You're not going to enjoy your hike. Like, it just makes more sense. And there was also another trail family in the area that we had kind of flip-flopped with, and they were flipping almost at the same exact time. And it was just like, it just makes sense, you know?
Yeah. So you didn't do what some people do. You didn't go all the way to Qatar or to Baxter. You actually went to Monson and then did the 100-mile wilderness plus Qatar, which actually is a really smart idea as far as I'm concerned, because your legs are fine by then, or they should be. If they're not, you're in trouble.
Right.
They should be fine by then. And then you've got the exciting finish of a 100-mile wilderness, which is epic, I think, by the way. And then the epic climb up Katahdin. So I think you've got the best of both worlds doing that particular flip.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's twofold. So the first thing is it's easier to get into Baxter State Park by going through the 100-mile wilderness. If you come in as a day hiker from a car, it gets a little more challenging unless you go through one of the hostel and shuttle services. You can't just kind of show up there. So it makes sense just to get dropped off in Monson, do the 100-mile wilderness, and then climb Katahdin. But more so, it gives you a little bit of a lead up, and you know it's exciting going through the 100-mile wilderness because it's amazing. It's, you know, there's a lot of special places on the AT, but it's very special. And you get to see Katahdin from 60 miles away and 40 miles away. And then it's like right there, so you can reach out and grab it, and then you climb it. And, you know, that's exciting too.
You know what, that brings up it always does, the hairs on the back of my neck thinking about that. When you first see Katahdin and then you see it from 40 miles away, and then you come out of Avon Bridge and you just see this thing right in front of you. Oh my gosh.
Right.
That is such a moving moment. It's almost tear inducing.
Yeah.
So what was your Katahdin day like then? It wasn't the same as somebody who's finishing, but it must be still pretty epic.
Yeah. You know, it was a beautiful day, a little bit of cloud here and there, but it was pretty clear, dry. So it was a A+ day to climb it. And it was amazing. It's, for a day hiker or a through hiker or a section hiker, it's an amazing climb no matter what. And you know, it's very rewarding, but it's also a very sacred mountain. It was, it's just really cool up there. You feel connected with, you feel connected with the earth and history and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't the same experience I'd always dreamed of because I still had 800 miles to go. So I didn't have that, you know, touch the sign, emotional kind of thing. There was a little bit of that, but there were through hikers going up there with us, and they were having a totally different experience than I was.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That just gives me reason to do the hike again and do it as a no-go.
Well, your Katahdin was crossing the bridge back into Pennsylvania, basically.
Yeah, my last mile was hiking the I-80. What is it? I-81 bridge with, you know, 18-wheelers screaming by.
Not quite the same, is it?
Although I will admit that other than that last mile, Delaware Water Gap is a cool place to finish because you have the deer head in there.
Yeah.
It's a very hiker-friendly place. It was a really cool place to finish the hike, other than that last mile of walking.
And I know you did sustain a couple of injuries out there. I presume that's why you were slowed down a little bit, weren't you? Was it those injuries?
Yeah, so I had the biggest problem I had was dehydration or heat exhaustion. I'm not really sure which. Right. My guess is dehydration. I had 4 bouts.
Yeah, it's surprising. Don't you think so? It's surprising how quickly it gets you as well. You realize, man, I've got to have some water now. Right.
Well, for me, it was I never got thirsty when I would have the dehydration issues. It was I would all of a sudden not be hungry, which was very odd for me. And by that point, it was too late. I was already dehydrated. And if you start chugging water when you're dehydrated, you can have some negative side effects. And that's what would happen. Yeah, I would all of a sudden be in this state where my stomach was upset. And the first 2 times that happened, I didn't know why. I thought it was a tick bite at first or something, or, you know, some other kind of issue. And then I got thinking, and it was like talking to other people who were having the same issues. And it was like, oh, I'm dehydrated. And so anyway, I lost a few days because of that. You know, I had a few aches and pains though, with knees and hips and stuff.
What did you expect?
Right. Yeah. Nothing that the aches and pains never really slowed me down. The only thing I had was a corn on the end of my second toe. And that was the most debilitating thing on the trail. I thought I was going to have to quit going through the roller coaster. It was so painful.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's not the place to get it either, is it? The roller coaster. There's a lot of work going on there, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, the ends of your toes get beat up through the roller coaster anyway.
That's right.
And I found a solution for that. And then that was fine. But the dehydration was the main thing. So stay hydrated through Virginia and Pennsylvania. It's tough, but you got
to do it. That's right.
Drink way more than you think you
Absolutely,
need to.
every time. I used to try to do. I didn't do it every time. I used to take my pack off when I got to a stream or a water source. I'd filter a litre of water and try to glug the whole litre if I could. Then I'd only ever carry just 1 litre of water because it's less weight, but I've got a litre of water inside me, plus I'm carrying a litre of water in my Nalgene, and that kind of helped me do it. And I think that was a tip given to me by somebody, and it really helped me anyway.
Yeah, same.
But now you're back.
Yep.
And we're recording this on the very last day of December, in fact.
That's right. Happy New Year's.
And to you. And this will be going out in the new year. And it's about 2 months after you've finished. How are you feeling? And you mentioned you've been a little bit depressed. I mean, how are you getting back into life?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I decided while I was on trail to take a little bit of a sabbatical from work because for me, deciding what I wanted to do with the rest of my life was not a good idea on trail because it's not reality. For me, for some people, it's a great place to think about it. For me, I needed to make those decisions in the real world because if I made that decision on trail, I would have never left the trail. But so I've just been kind of taking it slow and observing the earth or observing the world. But yeah, I'm slowly working myself back into things. And I feel pretty good. I'm getting ready to do the Pinhoti Trail in a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to do the PCT if I can get a permit. I'm just trying to gear up for that. I wanted to take a good couple of months to rest my body, and now I'm starting to get back into getting back into some hiking with my pack and things like that.
So this is not a one and done. This has opened up the idea of doing other long distance hikes as well. That's nice.
Yeah, I think so. At least for the next year. So everybody asks if I'm going to do the Triple Crown, and that's not necessarily my goal, but I'll probably do it if things work out.
If you do a second one, you're going to do the third one. You got it, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
As a coach, as a fitness coach, are there any tips you can share with the listeners about the physicality of hiking? I know you mentioned posture when we spoke before. Was this an observation you made this year when you were out on the trail and you saw how people hiked and you thought to yourself, well, you might want to consider this, might want to consider that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, from a fitness perspective, I saw a lot of bad posture, flat feet, things like that. And those are all things that you can train that will help your hike. I mean, so many people had knee pain, back pain, and things. And there was just either some kind of compensation that they had or some kind of asymmetry in their body. And
whoa, what's that in English? What does that mean in English?
So, like for example, a lot of people, their left foot would be flat. So instead of having a nice high arch that supports their foot, which supports the rest of your body, one arch might be flat. And so as they walk, one side is doing more work than the other side, and one side's getting beat up. More
is that shoes? Is that a shoes thing or not, or is it just how people are? I mean, I don't understand that sort of thing.
So there are some remedies through inserts and shoes and things like that, but some of that is trainable too if you're willing to work on it before you get out on the hike. So there's stretches you can do, there's strengthening exercises you can do, and another example would be like shoulders. A lot of people have rounded shoulders. Well, when you're hiking, that's only going to get worse. So anything you can do to get your shoulders in a better position is going to help. A lot of people, their hands go numb, from gripping their poles, but a lot of that's their head and neck posture causing some nerves to get pinched and things like that.
Well, there's two things with that. Firstly, my backpack, funny enough, I noticed on my golf bag, funnily enough as well, when they introduced the strap that goes over your shoulder, as opposed to the strap over one shoulder as it used to be. Now the strap of your back fits around your neck, doesn't it? And it really feels comfortable to me to walk like that. And I found that same feeling with the backpack. I found tightening my pack in a certain way would literally pull my shoulders back.
Right.
But the problem you then have, I think, is well, me anyway, I was constantly washing my feet because I was falling over all the time.
Yeah.
So, so your head does go down because you are washing your feet all the time, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's some of it. There's things that you're going to do on the hike that aren't great for your body, but the more you can do to prepare for that, if your head's already 2 inches out in front of your torso when just sitting around drinking coffee, it's not going to get any better on trail. So if there's some things, but yeah, so improving posture, improving single leg balance. If you can balance really well and do some leg strengthening exercises on one leg versus 2 legs at a time, that's going to help you a lot. We function one leg at a time, left, right leg, left leg, right leg. And so you need to be really good at exercises on one leg. That's going to help you a lot.
I'd fall over on 2 legs. so that's not helpful at all.
Right. Well, if you just get better. You don't have to be good, but if you can get a little better.
I can stand on one leg. In the shower, I stand on one leg to wash my feet as opposed to bending down or sitting down and wash my feet. Yeah. So I can do that. So that's not too bad. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So how are you coping with eating like a human being again?
Oh, I haven't started that yet. I was still drinking my coffee with Carnation instant breakfast till about 3 weeks ago.
Dear.
So, it's tough. And interestingly, at the end of my hike, I felt like I was craving fresh fruit, some vegetables and things like that. And I did, I have been eating some fruits and vegetables on trail, but I still fall back into that, the hiker eating, behaviors.
Snickers and peanut butter. Oh my God.
That's right.
Or even dipping Snickers into a peanut butter jar.
I didn't go that far, but maybe next time.
Totally. Okay, man. Well, look, it's been lovely to catch up with you. I'm really pleased we were able to do this. I want to share with the listeners. Garrett was very patient with me yesterday. We tried recording, it just didn't work out at all. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story with us. And I just wish you well on the PCT. If you do get your permit, let me know, and we'll just have a chat before and perhaps after you've done the PCT. All right?
Okay. Thanks for having me on, Mighty Blue.
Okay, man. You take it easy. Okay.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Cheers then. Bye.
Cheers.
I really enjoyed chatting with Garrett. I recognised so much of what he was saying. That reintegration back into what Dixie calls the synthetic world is a bit jarring for those first few months. You have to get used to a boatload of additional choices that are simply unavailable out there on a trail. But Garrett should be fine. He has a career that he can plug back into pretty much anywhere in the country, so he should be good. Before we move on, I wanted to remind some of you that Jester and I will be at HangCon this weekend. Well, we'll be there Friday and Saturday. It's being organised by, among others, our friend Paul Collins or Skunk Ape, and I know that several of you are going to be there. Please say hi if you see us. I may well be podcasting, so you might even get on the show next week. Somebody else who will be there is Courtney Miller. Courtney is the host of our newest show, Hiking Unfiltered, and I know this because I just edited it. This week, Courtney is asking her guest, is hiking sexy? Now, I'd never thought about it in those terms, but apparently it is sexy. Who knew? Make sure you listen to that episode, which drops this coming Monday. And remember, you can find all of our shows, all 7 of them, at our hikingradionetwork.com website. But now, with an introduction that I totally screwed up in the recording, here are 3 for the price of 1. Here's Kera Smith, Brittaney Olvord, and Ryan Block. Well, we got 3 for the price of 1, or 1 for the price of 3. No, 3 for the price of 1 today. This is Kera Smith, Brittaney Olvord, and Ryan Block. Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
How are you today?
Good morning.
I'm very good, thanks. And actually, it was Kera wrote to me, very, very enthusiastic about the upcoming hike of you're the aunt of either Ryan or Brittaney. I can't quite recall, Kera.
I'm Ryan's aunt.
Ryan's aunt, okay. And she was very enthusiastic that I should record them because told them they're a super cute couple and they're going on the Appalachian Trail. So I said, well, we'll think about that. I hadn't actually made up my mind who to follow in 2022. And then Kera said she's going on the hike with them as well. So, Kera, first off, I can see how they're super cute, but tell us why you want to join them on this hike.
Well, really got interested in hiking the AT several years ago after I went on the Camino. And so I was going in hiking sections, just day hiking and all that. And Ryan has a great story to tell about his day hiking. So after they decided they were going to go, I thought for several years I'd be waiting until all my kids graduated high school. And I'll have 2 seniors next year. And but after they said they were going, I just couldn't. Brittaney and I were working together in the same classroom. And she'd come into work talking about it. I'm like, that's it. I'm just going with you.
So your teachers, how can you both get away then?
Well, I teach pre-K. Go ahead, Britt.
Well, I actually just moved to Virginia. Me and Ryan moved to Virginia to live with his mom so we could save up. Previously, I was working for a school district, and I just kind of told them, that I was leaving. And when we left, we've just kind of been saving up money. I haven't gotten a job since I got here, but I start my orientation for substituting here on Wednesday, actually. And that's kind of a come and go as you please kind of deal. So it's kind of easier for me to just be like, okay, well, I don't have to schedule myself anymore until after I get back from the trail. So
you could be the first AT Thru hiker who actually subs while you're on the trail. How about that? You should try that.
I should.
So the two of you both quit, intending to come back at some stage, or because you look pretty committed there, Kera. You're actually in a classroom right now. Are you going to go back to it?
Yeah, I have given my notice for when we're going on trail, and then hopefully come back. I'm not positive, but we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what the trail, where it's going to lead me.
It's going to lead you north.
Yeah, but when we're finished with the trail, I know I have a lot of time to think and just kind of figure out kind of what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, I'm still feeling the same. I'm 70 this year, in fact. So, Ryan, tell me, how can you get away from work then?
It's the same sort of deal. I don't currently have a job. I'm just going to get a retail job, just to save up a little bit more money.
Your mum must be so proud.
Oh yeah,
living in the basement again.
Living in my mom's basement. It's the dream when you're 26 years old.
Living the dream. You can't beat that.
I don't think you could come up with a better story for an AT Thru hiker. Yeah. Living in your mom's basement. So, so I'm just working retail right now, and then I'll leave when it's time and come back when it's time if they'll have me back. But because we don't know what's going to be the future, we don't know if we're going to be triple crowners or so we'll see.
I agree. You know what? I think that's marvelous. Now, my generation never did this. Yours is prepared to just pack it up and go, and then come back and work it out when you get back. And we just weren't as practical as that. And I love that attitude. But now your aunt set you up for the day hiking story, Ryan. You might as well tell us it.
Yeah, it kind of relates to how I first met the Appalachian Trail. It was July of 2020.
Oh wow!
And we. I had known about the AT for quite some time. When my mom did the Camino, do you know what year that was, Kera?
I think it was 16 when she went.
And in 2016, the idea of walking a long distance sounded really cool to me, but the whole staying in hostels and all that stuff, like every day along the way, didn't, and leaving the country didn't sound too awesome. So that I got introduced to the CDT, PCT, and AT. But in July we did McAfee Knob, which is just about an hour away from us right now. And that was after a year and a half, 2 years of sitting on my couch, being lazy during the pandemic. So I was not in shape and not excited to go. But we did it, and I cried the whole way, not
yes,
not literally, but I was in pain. I was like, I'm ready to go down. But it was really that feeling once we got to the top or got home that I felt accomplished and was like, okay, that was really cool. The feeling of accomplishment. And that's really what I'm looking forward to on the AT. So
I'll tell you what, man, you're going to get that every day out there. There are parts of the trail which suck, parts of the trail which don't suck and parts of the trail which are magnificent. And you're going to get just this variety all the way up there. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So when are you actually planning on starting the trail, and when have you got any idea in your mind of how long it's going to take you?
So we're starting on March 28th. And so far I'm not the planning type of person. I'm not doing mail drops. So it's just I want to get to Katahdin before it closes. I don't have anything that's saying we need to come home at a certain time.
Well, the expression is, if the last one, it's not a race anyway, but the last one to Katahdin wins. So you'll be fine. Just enjoy yourself when you're out there. And the three of you, your hiking experience, you say you learned about it quite recently, right? What about you, Brittaney? How long have you been hiking?
So I'm a pretty frequent runner. I actually run every day, probably about 3 to 4 miles. But hiking experience, I mean, I didn't really have much. I don't have much. Me and Ryan, whenever after McAfee Knob, Ryan had told me, I kind of was working. And one day I came home and he's like, I want to hike the Appalachian Trail. I did not know that was a thing. I had no idea that was a thing. And I was like, are you feeling okay? Because he really just after McAfee Knob, he was out, and for the whole week he was sore. He was like, I'm never doing any of this ever again. Don't ever ask me to do it again. And then to come home and for him to be like, oh, I'm going to hike the AT. It was kind of crazy. And so Ryan's a hobbyist. He's a hardcore hobbyist. You see his computer right there. I mean, that's his hobby. He's gaming. He does 3D printing. I mean, he does everything under the sun. If he likes it, he's going to do it to the full extent. He's not going to do it halfway. And so for a minute, I was kind of for a couple of days, I was like, oh, he'll get over it. He'll push through. He'll forget about it and not want to do it. And then, he keeps watching these videos, these AT videos over and over again. I keep coming home, seeing him watching these videos. And he pulls up the Dixie video, the famous Dixie video of her whole through hike. And it nearly brought me to tears. And that's when I decided, that's what I want to do. I don't want to, sit around and wait to die. I want to go do something that makes me proud, do something that gives me experience. And so that's kind of how I learned about it.
That is so cool. So how are you preparing then, Kera, for this physically? Because, you've heard me say on the show, it is hard, but it's, the physicality comes quite quickly. How are you preparing physically?
Well, I'm in Texas, so it's a little hard to, get any kind of climbing in. I get out and hike just locally, day hikes whenever I can. Before Ryan and Brittaney left, we would get out on the weekends, go up to Oklahoma where there's more hilly areas and all that. But really, I'm just kind of hoping that I'm in shape enough that I get through the first 2 weeks and then train on the trail.
That's it. You're absolutely right. It's the only thing you need to do, so don't worry about any of that. And have you assembled your equipment? Have you had to buy all new stuff for this? Because this is so different to regular day hiking. So what have you got done in terms of equipment, all three of you?
I've pretty much started over from what I took on the Camino, obviously.
Right, yeah, sure.
I got a new pack and had to buy a sleeping bag and all that. So I've pretty much started over.
Nice. Was that watching videos as well?
Oh, absolutely. YouTube.
Yeah, because they're very helpful, aren't they?
Very much so.
Yeah, and Brittaney and I, we already had backpacks, and I had some basic stuff. Now, as Brittaney said, I'm a hobbyist. I like to have the good stuff. So of course I switched out some things. Brittaney got a new pack because we figured out she didn't get fit right after doing a shakedown hike. And yeah, it's been watching videos on the internet, reading on Facebook all day, every day, figuring out what I should get. So we're pretty much all set now. Just have a few little bells and whistles to get, but we're getting there, ready to go.
Well, I must say, my next question was going to be support. I'm sure your parents or your mother's supporting you going on this hike, isn't she? Because she's going to get you out of her basement, isn't she?
Yeah, she's going to kick us out and say, see you in 6 months.
She's going to drop us off and say bye.
That's right. Yeah, enjoy yourself. See you in 6 months' time. So what is the attitude of friends and family towards all of you about doing this? Is it supportive, or is it some people think you're crazy? I mean, is there a variety of things?
For me, my parents are super supportive. I mean, my dad's like, take a gun, take a gun, take a gun. But other than that, he's super
My
supportive.
dad gave me a gun.
I mean, my mom's super happy.
Of course you did. You're in Texas.
Yeah. Well, he's actually in West Virginia. Her dad is.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, even more. Yeah.
Right.
But my parents have been super supportive.
Are they nervous for you, or they think this is something that you're capable as a person of doing? Because I think you always have to look at the person as well. Because sometimes they would. I mean, I know Ryan's 6'6", so that kind of helps. So you should be relatively safe out there. So what are they thinking about how you're going to cope in the woods?
Well, I grew up in the woods. So, I mean, they're not really, yeah. I mean, basically it was a 15-minute drive down a dirt road to get to my house growing up. So I basically lived outside my whole childhood, but I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they're nervous. They don't think that I can't do it at all. My parents have always been, throughout my entire childhood, my entire adulthood, supportive of anything that me and my siblings do. So they really are like, you know, kind of our scaffolding for like all of this. They just really, they are encouraging for sure. I mean, I've had a conversation with my mom where she's almost came to tears with like to how happy she is for me, because she never did anything like that. And I think she is kind of living through me. And so she really likes that I'm doing it.
So is this one of the reasons you're going to be vlogging you do all the photography and editing to do a vlog on the trail? Absolutely.
Yeah. I want my family to kind of come along for the ride. My grandma, she's so worried about it. And so the last time I went to my parents' house, because before we lived in Dallas and my parents lived in the Beaumont area in Texas. And so it's like a 4-hour drive. And the last time I went there, my grandma was supposed to be there, but she ended up she got sick on Thanksgiving, which is right before we left. And I wanted to show her the Dixie video because I thought that it would make her feel a little better about it, because you see all the people around Dixie the whole time. She's not like alone, sure, you know? So sure. I think that's what she's mostly worried about. I think she thinks I'm going to be in the woods by myself.
You know what? You'll cherish the times when it's just the three of you by yourself in the woods as well. Trust me on that. You know, you're gonna love that part of it. And I presume, and I'm not even sure why I asked this question in the first place. I'm actually going to skip over it. Your expectation is you're going to finish, obviously. Because one of the things that on my show I did a couple of years ago, which was ask people what their biggest fears were before they started. One was, and 8 out of 10 of them, in fact, said the fear that they wouldn't finish.
Absolutely.
Would that be devastating for all of you or not?
I mean, I feel like there's ways that I would not finish that I would be happy with, mm-hmm. and ways that I would not finish that I'd be upset with. So like if I got injured, you know,
good answer.
I know I can go out, do it again another year, whatever. Or if I just absolutely know that I gave it my 100%, then I think that's fine too. But if I quit on a bad day, and
don't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too thrilled with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've really put my mind and my money and my time, my life into this now. So it's really important for me to finish at this point.
Well, I'm fascinated about the dynamic of the three of you together. If one of you were to quit for whatever reason, you're injured or ill, or you just want to go home, have you talked about they're all smiling right now, so you've obviously thought about it. What happens if one of you can't make it and does want to go home? Have you thought about that?
It's just kind of funny because I talked to Kera last night over the phone because we're both kind of nervous about this podcast. And so she's
why?
Like,
why are you nervous about the podcast?
Because you're like a movie
I'm just a fat old white bloke talking to you.
So she was like, well, you know, he's going to ask what we're going to do if one of us want to get off the trail. And I keep telling her, you know, if that happens, we're just going to cross that road when we get there, because I mean, there's no telling. If we're almost finished and one of us like wants to get off, it's going to be hard for all of us to get off at that point, you know. But if it's something little like, oh, I'm getting sick, I need to go to the doctor, it's a day, whatever, then that's fine. But I think that if it's a big deal, we definitely talk it out at the moment and then decide from there. But I don't think any of us are going to be mad at each other for continuing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that support for each other is really important, actually. You know, the fact that you've got each other to bounce ideas off and try to encourage each other to keep going. I've not seen this before where we've actually had three going together. I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing. I would strongly advise you to hike a couple of 100 yards apart from each other most of the day or some of the day, because you're going to drive each other crazy otherwise if that's your only conversation. So just let you know that. Now, what are you most looking forward to, each of you individually? What about you, Ryan? What's the thing you're most of all looking forward to?
I think the people on the trail is the thing I'm most looking forward to. It's just, I'm a really social person. I like making friends.
Says a man in the basement. Says a man in the basement.
Man, I shouldn't have told you I was in a basement.
No, you totally should.
Yeah, but I love making friends. I love making connections, and seeing some of these pass-through hikers that have made lifetime friends that are really special to them. It's like they share something together most people in this world will never share together.
I agree. I actually had an email. I read it out on the show the other day, a message. I didn't say who it was from, but a guy I met in my 2014 hike, who I literally only met him for 1, maybe 2 days. And he and I have stayed in touch ever since. And we regard each other as friends. And that is the sort of power of a friendship you're going to get on this trail. So what about you, Kera? What are you most looking forward to?
But definitely the same, the community, meeting people. But I love to be outside too. So just seeing from Georgia to Maine, it's a lot. So
It's a heck of a lot, yeah.
I'm excited just to be outside and be with these two.
I bet. Well, I could clear you were big fans when you sent me the original message. It was just them going together. So, Brittaney, what are you most looking forward to?
The half-gallon challenge.
So you need to get over that pretty quickly.
No, I think that I like the traveling aspect a lot. I think that it's a really unique experience, and I just want to soak everything up the whole time. I mean, I'm really excited for all of it. But I'm kind of opposite of them because people make me a little bit more nervous than them. So, but I hope that it brings me confidence in a lot of ways. I hope that the trail brings me confidence. So.
That's nice. That's really cool. I tell you one thing I think you'll probably all feel at some stage, and happened to me, I guess, from about 1,500 miles onwards, the thought that I'd walked on a single pathway from Georgia to wherever I was at the time, nearly New Hampshire at the time. And that in itself is a remarkable thing to get through in your mind, that you're walking through America on a single path. You're not taking diversions, you're going on a single path. And hopefully you get that feeling when you're out there. And what are you least looking forward to when you're on the trail? Because, and please don't say Pennsylvania, because most people say that. So what are you least looking forward to when you're out there?
For me, it's probably the cold.
Oh, cold.
Yeah. Growing up in Texas, spent my whole life in Texas, I'm used to the warm, and I love the warm. So, that's a kind of a part of the reason why we're starting a little later in the season. Maybe hopefully getting some decent weather there in the Smokies.
I thought you told me before the other two came on the reason you were starting later was because it was Brittany's birthday a couple of days before.
That's why I said part of the reason.
Yeah.
But also, it's Brittany's birthday, the 25th, so we want to celebrate it here at home.
Cool. And what about you then, Kera? What are you least looking forward to?
Probably Brittaney waking me up in the middle of the night because Ryan's mad at her for something and she wants to sleep in my tent. No, missing my family. I have 5 kids here in Texas, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're all grown up.
Will they visit you when you're out there?
I hope so. I have a grandbaby. I'm hoping my daughter and her husband will drive out and let me see him because my sister obviously lives in Virginia and I have family. My dad's in West Virginia. I have 2 brothers on the trail.
Cool.
So
cool.
They have a place
they should
to
be
come.
Okay then. And what about you, Brittaney? What's the thing you're least looking forward to?
Any bug that bites. any bug bites.
Yeah, watch out for those. Yeah. I don't know whether it's going to be a bad year or not this year for ticks, but none of them are good. There's no year that's good with ticks, so watch out for those. And have you got trail names? Any of you yet?
Nope.
We do not.
And we made a deal that we can't give each other our trail names.
Quite right too. Yeah, you got to get. You're going to let somebody else name you. Mm-hmm. Dangerous, of course, but that's okay. What I'd like to ask, and obviously thanks for coming on, what I'd like to ask is that you keep in touch with me. I'll give you my cell phone and text me when you've got a story to tell. And I'll jump on the phone, and you'll have to huddle around a phone or put a speakerphone on or whatever it's going to be. And we'll record a story you might have to tell as the weeks go on, and including as you're preparing for something before the hike itself. But certainly when you get going, we want to learn about how you're doing. Okay?
Awesome.
Great.
Okay.
That's cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I do appreciate it, and we're going to follow you all the way up to Maine. Take it easy. Bye.
Thank you, Mike. Bye.
I really think the dynamic between those three will be interesting over the 6 months of a through hike. The good thing is that they're communicating now over what might happen. So my guess is that they'll do well. But as we all know, 2,200 miles is a heck of a long way. I'll look forward to catching up with this trio as the hiking season unfolds. I didn't contact any of the others this week. I'm afraid time was against me, but I'll no doubt find somebody to chat with before next week's show. Before we read a very surprising chapter of Winton Porter's Passing Through, I want to thank all of you who've stepped up and supported our show this week. When I say all of you, I'm actually referring to Kevin Eastman, who's a monthly donor, and he stayed with us for another month. Thanks, Kevin. If you think that we provide value to you, please consider donating to the show, either via PayPal through the donate button on our website, or even a check to the address I put in the show notes. While we charge nothing for these podcasts, this does not mean that they're cheap to produce. I can tell you, you'd be surprised. I simply could not afford to do this if I didn't get donations. So, as I say on the value for value principle, please think about it. Finally today, with Passing Through getting towards the end, Winton has kept one of his best chapters till the end. I can tell you, I did not see this coming. I'll see you next week. Chapter 19, International Man of Mystery. Dear Winton, sorry to take up some of your time, but I am desperately trying to locate James Ingram. I know for sure that he was somehow involved in your company. That's the last time we had contact. Some of his relatives in Norway have been involved in an accident, and it seems that he is the only member alive. Kind regards, Patrick. My printer is an old dot matrix. I keep it because it's cheap to run, and I like the singing clatter it makes as it pounds the letters across the page, like some cross between an old typewriter and an electric saw. I ripped the strange email, full of typos and bad punctuation, from the rollers and head toward the balcony, where Alpine is trying to convince some 20-year-old kid that he doesn't need to carry a full-length hatchet and a 2-foot bow saw. The kid is starting to get irritated. He loves his hardware. Okay, let's say you need one of them. You don't need both. Why don't you give up the bow saw and maybe cut half the handle off that hatchet? No way, dude. I like the feel of a full-length hatchet in my hand. Winton, would you tell him? I tell him. Friend, there are two things that a hatchet like that is good at doing in these woods. Freaking the shit out of every hiker and little boy you camp with over the next few months, and carving a gash into your leg, so large that you'll wish you had bought a gun so you could shoot yourself in the head. We know a guy who knew a guy, Alpine says, who cut his damn kneecap off with a hatchet. Cut his kneecap off? Kid is frozen in horror. Alpine says, swiping his hand through the air. Imagine that. I ask Alpine for a word in private. We leave the kid on the balcony, holding his saw and his hatchet, staring at his knees, and walk up to the higher overlook, a small clearing about 50 yards up the hill behind the store. Alpine rests his foot on the stone that bears a plaque commemorating W.R. Neal, the surveyor of the American Scenic Highway that around 1920 would be laid through what was then known as Frogtown Gap. I hand Alpine the printout. This just came in. Something about a relative in an accident in Norway. Sounds like a can of crap to me. Alpine throws a casual glance at the page with a chuckle and a smirk, but then his face turns ghost-like, and his eyes seem to drop into some inward abyss. He takes a half step back, as though he needs the extra space to gather his thoughts. What's wrong? Is it real? Do you know this Patrick fella? Swallowing, he says, No, it's probably my ex-father-in-law, Max. He gave me and Mariac some money when we got married, and now that we're divorced, he wants me to pay him back. How did he find you? That's not hard. I'm running a business, Alpine. I'm trying to be found. And pictures of you are all over my website. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him you haven't seen me. Fine with me. Assuming that Alpine is correct and that this Patrick is really Max, I decide to stay out of the whole situation for the moment and respond to Patrick. Patrick, thanks for the email. Haven't seen James in a while. Sorry I couldn't help. Regards, Winton. Alpine had it all. It only made sense that others would want a piece. All of us at the shop had heard about the 2 condominiums in Miami, the plans to develop a resort on the 3 acres in Hawaii, the monthly military retirement check, the trust fund full of cash that included the land in Norway that Alpine leased to a local farmer for grazing livestock. If we sometimes measured our lives against Alpine's, if now and then pouring antifreeze into a toilet on a cold morning, I saw myself in one of those Miami condos, our envy never lasted long against our love for him. What stood out about Alpine, far more than his wealth, were his loose, easy style, his simple tastes, and his unhesitating loyalty to his friends. This was not a man who rubbed his success in your face, or who used his money to draw boundaries around himself. And he had been a soldier, an adventurer, a wise investor. How could you hold his money against him? We were proud of him, and he made us proud ourselves. He was handsome, wealthy, rugged, had been all over the world, and he claimed to love no place better than our mountain crossings. He could go anywhere, and he stayed with us. He made us all feel a little more glamorous. Until a few days later, when 2 more strange emails showed up in my box, and Alpine's glamour started to flake off like shiny paint. To Mr. Winton Porter, from Carlos Puchades. Hello, I'm Carlos Puchades from New Port Richey, Florida. I'm trying to plan a hiking trip for my family. I would like to get some info on some of your best and most experienced staff with pictures and a history of themselves. Thank you. Hi, Wintoni. Just been looking what's on offer on your website. Saw your picture gallery and, surprise, surprise, there are some pickies from my old mate Jimmy. Is he in your employ? Can you kindly ask him to contact me, and where can I get hold of him? Regards, Brian White. Currently in the Ardennes, Belgium. Mountain Crossings has never led or guided trips on the Appalachian Trail, but it's commonly assumed that we do. So Carlos's first request is not that unusual. His interest in pictures of my staff and a history of themselves, however, is very unusual. The second email from Mr. White about his surprise finding of pickies of his old mate Jimmy, with its forced informality and its made-up slang, is just bizarre. My instinct is starting to stir questions in my mind. Again, I print the emails and go in search of Alpine. This time I find him in the parking lot, loading a stack of large blue Tupperware containers into the back of his Isuzu Rodeo, a surfboard and 2 bikes leaning against the back bumper. I shove the emails into my pocket and stop halfway down the stairs to study the scene for a moment. He tries shoving the containers in. They don't fit. He tosses some bundles and rags around and smacks the Tupperware into place. He's frustrated and he's trying to control any outward appearance of panic. I get within 2 steps of him without his noticing. His focus is limited to only what is a few feet in front of him. Where are you going? Huh? Ah, what? Where are you headed? I'm picking some stuff up that I had in the shed and I'm out of here, he says angrily, eyes narrowed. People around here don't give me the respect that I deserve. Alpine digs into his pocket and holds out his hand, exposing a small green and blue patch in the shape of a shield divided by a cross. Embroidered in the top left corner is a sun, and in the lower right corner a star. A diagonal red lightning bolt separates the 2 down the middle of the patch. He's shown it to me before. It's the patch of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Alpine slams it on top of one of the blue bins in front of him. I earned this patch. I went willing and proudly out there to lay my life on the line for these kids, and none of them give a damn. In the army, if any of these kids disrespected me like they do around here, I would have had them shoveling shit out of latrines for a week. Out where? To which honourable military engagement? What kids? Disrespecting him how? The hard-bitten veteran routine doesn't sound like Alpine. The complaint is too vague, too generic, too Hollywood. It's a disguise. Civilian life is different. I don't blame you for wanting to pack everything up and head somewhere else. Some days I wish I could do the same thing. Let me help you get some of this loaded, I say, as I grab a bin. I just don't get it, Alpine rants, punching some cargo around. I've spent my entire life in and around the military. My father was a colonel. My sister is a senior master sergeant in the Air Force. It's the only thing in life I know. I love this place. It's the only place where I've ever felt like I was at home. But I just can't stay. I need to go where my skills are appreciated, respected. What about Jennifer? His shoulders relax and his tone softens. She's coming with me. We're going to Colorado. I have a friend who owns an adventure travel company and he needs some help. We've been talking about it a lot. Where is she? She's mountain biking with her brother, Danny. Pause. Is this really what's bothering you? He just looks at me. Whatever is bothering him isn't about these kids not showing respect, nor is he simply pursuing a better life. He's running, and the only clues I have as to why now sit in my back pocket on the pages of those emails. Who is Alpine really? Why do these people want to find him? What has he done? Felicity calls from the top of the stairs saying that they need some help in the store. I tell Alpine to say goodbye before he goes. After helping Felicity, Nate and Buddy with the normal weekend crowd lined up for sodas, candy bars, trail advice and minor pack repairs, I return to my computer. There is already another email on the screen, obviously linking back to the previous ones. Only this time the return address does reveal someone named Max, so Alpine was right about that. Dear Winton, just a short thank you for covering up for Jimmy. The boy is now useless and doesn't know what's going to hit him next. There's no doubt that you will be held responsible for hiding this boy, disrupting the cause of justice. Mr. Hess has been fully briefed on your behaviour backing up this wanted criminal. Good riddance. Father of number 3 wife of Jimmy. I read the cryptic email 3 more times, the phrases striking like terrible bells. Wanted criminal. Number 3 wife. The cause of justice, covering up, hiding, disrupting, held responsible. What in the hell has Alpine, aka Jimmy, though rarely round here, done? He's starting to sound like the evil twin to the man I thought I knew. I go back outside. The Rodeo is still in the parking lot, but there's no sign of Jimmy. I see Jennifer and her brother Danny unloading their bicycles from the back of Danny's truck. I come down the steps and she crosses the lot to meet me. Danny gives me a serious look over his shoulder, then turns back around to fake some business with the bikes. He fiddles with the brake levers and tries to eavesdrop. Jennifer meets me in the middle of the lot. Winton, we need to talk, she says. I know we need to talk. Alpine says you're moving to Colorado. I suppose I should No, we need to talk. Did you know he's still married to his wife in Miami? That he has been married 3 times? Did you know that he has a 16-year-old son in Pennsylvania and a 12-year-old daughter in Norway? Did you know this? No, I didn't know this. How do you know this? Danny told me that Alpine's father-in-law found my father and talked to him. Danny wasn't supposed to say anything, but when he saw Alpine packing everything up, Danny decided that I needed to know. Where's Alpine now? He's next door, packing his shit up. Giving in to anger, she spits out the words, raking her fingers through her hair. What should I do? I tell her that I'm no psychologist and that we need more information. I don't even know who this man is, Jennifer starts to cry. He proposed to me. Well, it's your choice, I think. Walk away or go introduce yourself. Danny comes over and lays his hand on his sister's shoulder. She cries softly while he provides me with details of their family's conversation with the father-in-law, Max. Apparently, Max hired a private investigator to help find Sergeant James Jimmy Alpine Ingram. Warrants for Ingram's arrest were uncovered somewhere in Pennsylvania for back child support owed to his first wife and her son, Ingram's first child, a boy who is now 16. From there, the trial led to a second wife in Norway and Ingram's second child, a girl aged 12. The third, and allegedly the current wife, Mariek, lives in Miami and is the daughter of the pissed-off Max. I'm not sure how Mariek and Ingram met, but it seems that she went for him because he was an American who could speak Norwegian. Meanwhile, Max, scheming his revenge in Norway, is trying to figure out how to apprehend Ingram before he escapes the mountains of North Georgia and have him extradited to Pennsylvania. That's why he swore Jennifer's family to secrecy for a few days while he masterminded the arrest with his high-priced PI, Mr. Hess, the same Mr. Hess who has been fully briefed on my behaviour. I asked Danny if we're supposed to expect another convoy of FBI agents up the mountain. I don't know, this is some crazy stuff. Welcome to my world, Danny. We specialise in crazy. Jennifer and Danny leave to find Alpine and talk to him at my advice. See if you can get the other side of the story, I say. That's the least we can do. I stay at the shop where tense gossip is already buzzing. 2 hours pass, as slow and heavy as a hike up Blood Mountain in a cold rainstorm. We monitor the parking lot, expecting a caravan of police and wondering what we'd say to them. I check my email for another crazed note from Brian of Belgium, or Carlos of Newport Richie, or Mad Max, aka Patrick of Norway. It isn't until I've locked up the shop that Alpine finally appears. He looks like a man who has just spent half the day in a confessional booth, eyes swollen, face sullen. Honesty and other virtues are like muscles. You have to keep them in shape. James Ingram's honesty has just gotten more exercise than it has had in years, and he is exhausted. It's easy to sense that he doesn't want to go another round with me. He leans against his truck and folds his arms, waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. I'm not in a kindly mood when I get there. Well, you look like crap, I say. I suspect that a lot of what I've learned today is true. You don't need to explain yourself to me right now. At this point, I just want to know 3 things. Are you still married? Are there any dead bodies involved, and should we expect the police? Yeah, I'm still legally married to Mariak. No dead bodies, and it is unlikely the police will arrest me here in Georgia for a missed child support warrant. Here Alpine at last meets my eyes, and he gives just the slightest bitter smile. That I knew nothing about. I tell him to get some rest and we'll deal with this later. I'm not going to kick him out of my life. I didn't see Alpine or Jennifer for the next 2 days. During that time, Alpine dominated our conversations in the store, and within a day the story had found its way up the Appalachian corridor and onto nearly every trail forum. He had already been a part of the fabric of the trail, but now he was getting a much larger square on the quilt. Alpine was becoming an unwilling trail legend. I received 2 more emails from Max over the next few days. One was an invitation to his Facebook page to view his photo album, which I never did. The next one simply read, "Good job. Lock 'em up." It takes 4 days before Alpine agrees to sit down with me and tell his side of the story. He's not eager to face me, and he's still trying to salvage a relationship with Jennifer that he fears he has blistered beyond healing. We meet at the store after everyone is gone. The store is closed. The debriefing of Master Sergeant James Ingram goes something like this. Winton Porter. Want a beer? I've got a few hidden in the cooler. Sergeant James Ingram. No thanks. Porter. Well, hope you don't mind if I have one. Smiling. Wish you had brought some popcorn. Sergeant Ingram. We can go and get some. Porter. Listen, you know you don't owe me an explanation. It's your life, and you can carry on with it without ever having to tell me anything. Sergeant Ingram. I want to. This place means a lot to me. Jennifer means a lot to me. You guys are the only real family I ever had outside the military. I never knew why I ended up here exactly, and I don't know why I kept coming back, until now. Porter. Well, let's start from the beginning. My name is Winton Porter. What's yours again? Sergeant Ingram. It's Master Sergeant James Ingram. Porter. Master Sergeant, so the part about your military background is true? Sergeant Ingram. Yes, sir, that part is true. Porter. What about the property in Hawaii, the 2 condos in Miami, land and trust funds in Norway? Sergeant Ingram. I had a small trust fund set up after my father died. I spent the most of that money travelling, hiking and climbing in the United States and Europe mostly. I don't own 3 acres in Hawaii, and the condo in Miami, Mariak owns. The second condo I told you that I bought last year along Miami Beach was made up. I have a lot of family in Norway because that's where my mother's from, but I don't have land there. Porter. What about your mum? Is she dead or alive? Sergeant Ingram. She's alive. She divorced my dad several years before he died. She ran off with another woman. I never could fully accept that part of her life, and we haven't spoken in years. Porter. What about your kids? Sergeant Ingram. It's true. I have 2 kids, a boy in Pennsylvania and a daughter in Norway. His story plays out this way. He met his first wife in Pennsylvania when he was on leave from Fort Benning, near Columbus in east central Georgia, in 1991. I was only 19, young and dumb. She was 21, beautiful and tons of fun, he says. The fun soon led to pregnancy, and Ingram did the honourable thing and married wife number 1. They moved to Fort Benning, where Ingram was training, and the marriage was on the rocks from the beginning. Ingram headed off to another tour of Kuwait, and when he came back, his checking accounts were empty and his wife was gone. She went back home to Pennsylvania, and they both filed for a divorce. The settlement required Ingram to pay child support, but he didn't. His reasoning was, he says, I didn't know if I was going to be dead next week or next month, and she didn't want me in her life or the kids' life, so I just never paid. He also says that he didn't know about the arrest warrant in Pennsylvania, and that he called the desk officer yesterday and was told that if he sent $3,000, the authorities would lift the warrant and work out a payment plan. Sergeant Ingram: I can get the money, and they have already intercepted my tax returns, and as of yesterday they will start garnishing my monthly military retirement checks. But that's okay. I'll take responsibility, and if I work hard, maybe I can pay it off quickly. I want to help him. Porter: What about the daughter in Norway? Sergeant Ingram: It's less complicated. I haven't seen her since she was about 8 months old, but I did ask a friend to go check on her about 6 years ago and made sure she was all right. Nicolina is 12 now and has a brother and sister. I doubt she even knows that I exist. The family pretty much asked me to leave. My second wife, I met her when I was 23 and stationed in Hawaii. We spent 2 weeks together, partying, dancing, having fun. We met again a few months later in Washington, D.C. before she headed home to Norway. I had some time on my hands, family in Norway, so I followed her to Norway. She was gorgeous, funny, liked to hike, and she was always the life of the party. We partied nearly every night in the coffee houses and bars in Norway. It was a lot of fun. She was a lot of fun. One thing led to another, and she ended up pregnant. Things changed quickly. She went from short skirts to long dresses, church twice a week, Pentecostal, the evangelical Lutherans, and so on. The religion just didn't make sense to me. I wouldn't go to church, and that didn't sit well with the family. The rules were strict in the township where we lived. They ticketed me twice for washing my car on Sunday. I didn't fit into their society or the family, so they asked me to leave. I didn't want to leave my daughter, but it was for the best. I was still young, so I crawled back into my uniform and went off to do what I was trained to do, again not knowing if I would be dead next week or next month. The years pass, 9/11 happens, and now I find myself leading a team of men through the mountains in Afghanistan. Within a year, I'm crawling out of a downed helicopter that had taken enemy fire and crashed, while trying to return fire on a bunch of rags who believe that they get 12 virgins in heaven when they die, and watching 2 of my brothers die beside me. Life is crazy. Porter: Do you think about her? Sergeant Ingram: All the time. I think about both of them all the time. You don't know what a relief it is to get this off my shoulders. It's liberating. He smiles. Porter: What about Mariette? Sergeant Ingram: I tried to get back together with her when I left here the first time, but we have nothing in common really. She was a good person, I liked her, all in all, but we were complete opposites. She liked walking in malls, I liked hiking in the woods. Porter: What about Mad Max? Sergeant Ingram: He's just pissed off, and I really can't blame him. His little girl got shaded, and he wants revenge. I would have probably done the same thing. Porter: Will he be coming after us? Sergeant Ingram: I don't think so. I asked Mariette to call off the old dog. There's really nothing he can do. He doesn't understand the laws in the US, and when he uncovered a warrant for my arrest, he thought for certain that I was going to jail. But that's not the way it works on something like child support. Plus, I want to pay. I will pay this off. Porter: Where did Mariette think you were until her father tracked you down here? Sergeant Ingram: Training a sled dog team in Alaska. Porter: How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Sergeant Ingram: I don't know. I'm just glad that the truth is coming out. The conversation goes on long into the night. Porter: So go get some sleep and be back at work at 8:30 in the morning. Got it? Sergeant Ingram: Roger that. Porter: And go and see a doctor about the lying crap. It's not something you can turn off overnight, you know. Sergeant Ingram: Yes, sir.